What I'm hearing is the machines are taking over. Welcome back. Wing It Podcast, goosedigital.com, episode 14. Who do we have?
Robin Kroll.
Renata Ramastra.
Kevin Butler.
Welcome, everybody.
Hello.
So, are the machines really going to take over here?
No.
That's what we're talking about today.
That sounds like something a machine would say.
The no?
Denial.
Don't deny it.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, with all this AI and machine learning and Elon Musk and batteries, pretty soon we're going to be out of the job. You know, that's what it seems like. Marketers are just going to be out of the job.
Or is that maybe a bit far-fetched and there's a way to sort of automate manual laborious tasks with humans?
So what we're talking about is, this was Robin's idea.
This was my idea.
Because she's our VP of Data and Insights.
Right.
So she lives and breathes this stuff.
Yes, but is very, very bullish on the human intervention part, right?
Yes. So we're trying to understand marketing automation, which is our core business. Does that mean we're just automating ourselves out of the job? Or what does it mean? And why do you still need people part of the equation? Right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so first of all, can we just talk a little bit about the name? Because we seem to go around a little bit on this right now. So, Kev, I'll let you rip into this one.
Yeah, because those of you who know me pretty well know that I always kind of say I don't like the name marketing automation because it's not like you can go buy these great tools and then you're done by lunch setting it up and we're on the golf course by 1 p.m.
You flip a switch and the money just pours in?
Correct. I do not feel that way. I think these names for these tools should probably be something more like marketing engagement platforms and this idea that they support the ability to engage an audience at a level of scale, right? Less so than just completely automating everything for good and set and forget and you're done.
Right. I mean, you're not really automating the function of marketing. And in some cases, we're saying marketing is playing a bigger role than just top of funnel. So that sort of, that doesn't tell the whole story, right?
Right, because you're automating certain repeatable tasks, things that you can use data to be able to say, yeah, this is how the next action should occur. But there's all the stuff that has to happen beforehand in order to be able to set up the automation. That's absolutely something that you need humans involved, right? So you need there's the strategy, there's understanding the implications on the business, there's making the decisions where who is going to be involved from the creative, right? So we were talking a little bit about that. And those are absolutely things that humans have to be driving in order for the automation to even come into play.
So maybe we could talk about, so we're saying why people need to be involved. But
more than need to be involved, right? Like people are essential for marketing automation to be successful.
Yes.
My perspective.
Yes. So if you said we're in the world now where marketers are being asked to do more and we actually can do a whole lot more, to me it sort of speaks to one thing is like not really an efficiency. I don't like the idea of like this just being an efficiency play as much as it is about effectiveness and volume. So if you could do more as an individual, and I think Renata, you could talk maybe a little bit about how with marketing automation now at your side for a couple of years now, how you've been able to do a whole lot more than, which is things like more campaigns, more revenue being driven.
Sure. So, I mean, we can turn over and certainly reach a larger number of people, and we can certainly utilize the platform to personalize the way in which we're reaching those customers. But I think the fear always when we talk about automation is that, we're going to have these robots come in and do the thinking for us. And that will never be the case in any industry that you're looking at. You absolutely need people, as Robin said, to be analyzing that data, to figure out, what are the tools necessary to actually make those platforms work for you. And one of the things that we're doing with our particular customer right now is like list management. We're looking at what kind of data do we need to pull from the customer side to then integrate into the platform to actually develop coherent email campaigns and social media campaigns and so forth. And you can't do that. You can't just press a button and have it pull all the right data for you. You always need somebody back there spot checking and ensuring that the right data is coming down and it's being utilized effectively. So
Yeah. So if you thought, how do I, one of the questions that we were thinking about was, how do you achieve your marketing automation, or how do you get to marketing automation? It's not just like you said, Robin, grabbing a tool, plugging it in, pushing a button. So let's talk a little bit about what is the process that you go through strategically to think about, we brought data up, but what other things would you think about, Robin, like at the beginnings of setting up your marketing automation?
Sure. So the first thing is on the strategy level. So, knowing your business, where and what direction do you want to grow? Right. So could you use some kind of statistical model that might show, revenue growth is occurring in a particular area, but what if that doesn't fit to your brand, right? Then it wouldn't make sense.
Sure.
So you need to understand, what is it that your brand represents, and therefore how do you want to grow, in what direction, what audience, what products. So that absolutely has to be the first level of decision, right?
Sure. I mean, in some cases, automation could be a bad thing. In that example where you've set this automation up, you had the best intentions, or the business requirements were what they were a year ago. Now it's actually a bad thing. Those products are no longer profitable for us, or the way of approaching our customers actually changed strategically, where having that in place, isn't valuable. Renata, what do you think?
well, yeah, I mean, I think, again, looking at the customer that we deal most closely with, their target audience has evolved over time, and we're still trying to understand who that target audience actually is. So if you're using this automation platform in a repetitive manner, we're not actually taking the time to think through who that customer is, how do we best approach them, and how to make them respond. So like, you always need somebody on the data side to really think through how to best reach these people. And so although you can go
interpret the sort of the ongoing engagements behaviors,
Exactly.
and sort of adjusting, addressing
on the fly,
results,
the fly, absolutely.
That's certainly when you talk about the human element never leaving. To me, that's a big part of it, is being able to digest and interpret, not just based on that data, that campaign, but from a
Bigger
macro lens, what this all means, and things that the machine can never really quite know, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way for machines to work is with a certain level of predictability. And as we know, humans are, there are certain patterns to their behavior, but the best thing about people is that they are unpredictable, right? So they're going to do certain things that we're going to need to pivot on the fly, and no platform is necessarily going to be able to do
And maybe
that.
that's a good, when I think of a big part of what we do is about not just the typical thought process here. And I think a lot of marketing teams that aren't aligned with sales, they're just kind of off to the edge, automating lead generation or demand generation. Maybe they're getting into customer marketing, but they're doing kind of like that on their own silo and trying to make their job easier. And maybe to your point, we're not like go after a broader piece, but when a big part of what Goose does is align your sales and marketing. So like what I would say, another way to start in terms of planning out your marketing automation, and why the human component is so critical, is that asking the questions like, how do you sell today? Like, how are you approaching some of those customer types? To your point, Renata, like, what tactics have been successful over the years to convert a dormant audience and get them buying again from a sales perspective? And then looking at how those things can be brought into the fold or enhanced using marketing automation. That thinking isn't something that you'll get out of a machine. You need to actually sit down and plan those and have those interviews, right?
Exactly. And certainly when you talk about AI, somewhere in the future, there might be, there might be a world where robots can sort of feel and sense and make those kind of decisions, but we're nowhere near there. And so having that mix of the human as well as the automation, that's really the best case scenario. And we used to build a lot of models, right? So that's really a data intensive, a very automated process. But one of the things that I learned is that if the results of a model didn't make sense to you as the business person, then the model couldn't be right, right? Because it had to make sense with your business. So that's a way of using, both the human and then the automated to be really successful in your strategies, because you're inputting both, I guess, the strong points of both.
What do you think? Were you going to chime in there?
Well, actually, I was going to respond to a point that you'd made earlier, and I think one of the important things to think about is that even though we might be applying some of the stuff that we've learned with, our sales team, for example, people, the way that things have always been approached, this might need to change when you're dealing with customers in a digital forum. So that's another reason to have the human element, to be thinking through these processes, because you do need to change your strategy based on your approach to the customer as well. So things that may have worked before, like cold calling or a regular sales room, may not apply, and we need to think about that as well. So, or
maybe the things that that don't apply, or maybe there's things that can actually make that sales-driven process better now. Which is a lot of the enhancing the sales team, both through the visibility and the telemetry and helping them go in the right spots. But from a digital engagement, saying, we see where you're going here with how you would handle that conversation. We can actually easily do that with the automation system and bring that to life online, right?
What about even human emotion or like human judgment? Like, for example, just being aware of I don't know, pop culture, things in society, right? Like maybe not sending an email to California, like burning hot fire, or like, just something like that. Whereas perhaps we're not at a stage with machine learning and AI where it's able to sort of have a layer of that kind of judgment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's all sorts of equivalents, right? What if another huge sort of scandal comes out and it's very taboo and you don't want your brand necessarily being part of that, referencing it, or just being associated with it at any level?
Yeah, I could definitely see, like, when you're from a strategy perspective and you're moving into new territory, that some of the traditional ways of measuring success, they may not be so clear to a machine. Well, you converted more traffic, or you drove up a click-through, and maybe we even sold more as a result, but were they the right customer? Did we pick up a bunch of people that maybe, while they did close business, are those total lifetime value customers, which we could, through other types of mechanisms, maybe have determined that, but we didn't. So was it a success? Maybe not. And you have to go back and look at that critically and evaluate it at a higher level than just, your typical KPIs that you'd be throwing down in a report. Or you'd say, well, the automation did really well, and this month was really large. And then the business says, well, yeah, but 3/4 of the products that went through that process, we actually raised the price on them. So while it looks like revenue was up, it wasn't actually the same, right?
It's asking the why, right? So the automation, again, report on your numbers. You can say, okay, this is what happened, but I'm really trying to delve into, well, why did that happen? Because you need to understand in order to be able to say, oh, we're going to continue along the same trajectory, or we need to pivot because the why is directing us in that way.
So many people get hung up on technology, that it's going to be the silver bullet. And I think I was reading a digital transformation article put out by Sid Lee over the weekend, and they were talking about, stop thinking that the technology is going to be the answer here. It's your strategy and how you're going to use that technology, which again is everything.
Isn't that what we say also?
That's everything
right?
that we say too, in terms of having success.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, but when you think about our automation solutions, just generally, what type of human resource, maybe we should kind of move the conversations. If we can agree that having people and strategy is important, well, how can the average business kind of achieve that? So they've maybe bought a product, and how many times we're brought into an opportunity where they already have a platform and they're just not getting what they need out of it. How should they start thinking about approaching that? What skills do they need to have internally to sort of challenge maybe both the business, but as well as the technology, to your point, Renata, to make sure that we do have the right data and we're not just garbage in, garbage out, or the business looks at a failed automation situation and interprets that as, well, I guess it doesn't work for our business, versus saying, well, no, it does. We just need to, we need to change our thinking up front. So how can we best guide people listening here of the types types of resources, I guess, that they should have.
Do you want me to jump in?
Sure,
Because
go ahead.
this sort of bleeds from your previous point on strategy, is sort of asking and identifying a lot of those things, like what are we trying to do here? But we've been doing a lot of different talking at different kinds of events recently, and we've got this one sort of this slide or talk track around what we call the modern marketer, and this idea that this is really the linchpin within an organization now. So it's data driven, really focus on scale and getting it right, but it's also someone who is a master at the numbers and really understanding the whole landscape of what this one interaction with an audience or a prospect or customer or whoever, what the implications are with that engagement and how to go and do that again and again and again, as well as a kind of a layer of tech savvy. And that whole landscape comment, just going back to that, is recognizing that marketing more and more is now responsible for the sort of the end-to-end journey. And it's not just once the lead's generated, you're out and done. It's what happens as part of that opportunity cycle, and then even into the in-life experience, however that looks for any business. So that profile, Mike, that you're talking about is sort of, it's growing and broadening because of, I think, the linchpin-like role marketing's now playing in these orgs.
Renata, what do you think?
I think actually somebody else would jump in on that.
That was a mouthful. Sorry.
I agree, and it's interesting if you think of the skill set, right? So you've got like the, sort of the hard skills like the analytics, financials, and then sort of the softer skills, which range from maybe branding, and then the other thing that I always think about is being able to take the lens of the consumer, right? So that's another aspect.
Do you agree with the notion that marketing should sort of be the one who sort of represents the consumer?
That's an interesting question.
Like, you should be able to, as the marketer, wear the lens of the
or at least
buyer.
be able to build that out, because I think within an organization, you have so many people who actually touch the consumer, from your sales team to your account team to your customer service team, and each one of them have a different conversation with the customer, so they can contribute, or they should be contributing to that customer picture from, what does the customer want at the beginning of the relationship? How do we engage with them at in a growth? But then what are some of the problems or the roadblocks they come up against? And that creates the customer lens. So if you think about the benefit of your product or how you build out new products, that's how you need to sort of frame that
I think
out.
we have, excuse me, we have a sense that machines aren't going to replace us anytime soon in the automation, but it's probably equally great when you can be strategic and automate effectively, but also to have a level of the automation in place so that you're not, you can go out to larger audiences, you can drive bigger value, and you're not just doing this all manually on the back of a bunch of resources.
Yeah.
I would say another situation that we come up a lot is that there's a lack of strategic capability. I mean, I think there's no, maybe there is, just they're not aware of the level of strategy thinking that needs to go in. To your point, Renata, like being able to pull back.
Well, I mean, certainly to respond to what Robin was saying, we've noticed that there isn't necessarily a workflow and an understanding of the different conversations that people are having along the way, right? So even though we're a little bit more transparent about what's happening on the digital side, we don't necessarily know what's going on in the sales room at the first level, the second level, when they close a sale or anything, along the way. And so it becomes a little bit more difficult when you're trying to guide them and you're trying to guide them blind. And I think on the company end, we do need a human there to actually talk us through all of those various steps to actually be able to facilitate working with them.
And not to change just a point without sort of veering another direction, but you see in a lot of companies over the last couple of years, there's been this chief customer officer, right? So not in charge of marketing, not in charge of sales, not in charge of technology, but is in charge of understanding what today's customer, the future customer, what they really want, maybe bringing those things together.
But there's this thinking is a skill that we can bring as a partner in terms of bridging that gap. Sometimes even your internal marketers that you may have put in charge of the platform, they may struggle with
Yeah.
being able to communicate and bridge that gap to the executive team on how well we're really doing, or how much more time we're going to need, or that automation test that we did, it failed, but that's good. Now we can look at doing other things. And sometimes you can have this lack of strategic bench strength or ability to really kind of take grip of the situation with the executive team and help them, right the ship down the right path. So there's an opportunity, little plug for us as a partner, obviously.
Yeah.
But also when you're thinking of building out your team, to say like, don't, maybe look for someone that has some experience really taking an organization and transforming them. Not just maybe working on an automation solution for some company that that's great. They have skill sets in that. But if you're talking about being strategic and being able to sit with an executive team and move an initiative forward over a few years, that's a skill that needs to be there.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
All right. I think that wraps up the humans versus machines. I mean, I'm very happy that we're not going to be replaced by an AI bot anytime soon. But Canada has a big vision, Kev. A
Yeah.
big AI vision.
Yeah.
They're going all in, so there's a good chance that we won't be around anymore.
Can we get an AI bot that
some
makes
point.
sure that we always have coffee in the office? Because I'd be in for that.
Well, no, we'll be
you
bringing
know?
coffee to the AI
Oh,
bots.
okay.
Yeah,
All right,
that'll be the thing.
That's scary. All right.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Great. Well, if you liked today, please like and subscribe and favorite the podcast. Throw us a review if you're on any of the platforms that support that. And head over to goosedigital.com/blog to see our podcast and learn more. Thanks.